Good evening. This is week 4 of Conversation 1. We did a makeup lecture last weekend, so this would normally be week 3, but we are catching up to the weeks that we missed in March. So now we're on week 4. Don't be confused if you're in another class and you're still on week 3. That's because your class is scheduled for Thursday or Friday. But all Monday and Tuesday sections should have an extra week done now, at least in our class we have. So every Saturday, one more class will catch up. All right, we'll just get right into it. I hope that the volume is better. I guess this morning I didn't have my mic adjusted properly, so there was a little bit of issue with how loud my voice was, but I hope that issue is fixed. We are referring to the textbook again, Takeaway 2. The last lecture that we did was about great vacations, which we had to put a bit of a twist on that because right now very few people are going on vacations and a lot of countries have basically banned people traveling. So Air Canada, I'm from Canada, and Korean Air, that's where I live. Both of those companies have grounded their fleets as far as I know, and if you're working for those companies, then you're on unpaid leave while they wait for transportation and air travel to be restored. So that's a pretty scary thought that we are not allowed to fly around because everybody's so used to being able to go to other countries and do all these things. And today the topic, normally it's great to continue to talk about these things because especially university students usually hope to get a chance to do some traveling during their vacation, or maybe take a year off and do some backpacking somewhere, or just maybe before they start working and don't have any time anymore to get some experience going to different cities. So this topic normally is a good one, and I think it's still good because we just have to take a break for a while and be responsible, and then we all hope that adjustments will be made and people will be able to travel again. In the long run, this might end up being better for us anyway, just giving the earth a break and everything. I've said that before. But obviously everybody wants to go back to normal as soon as possible, but we have to be patient. In the meantime, though, we can dream, which is basically what I do all the time, because you'll see what I mean. Once you settle down and get a full-time job and have some kids, some people are really good at, still traveling, and I usually try to take my family somewhere at least once a year. But sometimes you just get too busy and you don't have a chance to get away. And so you just dream about going somewhere, and you just have to think about it. There's lots of places around the world that I have not been yet, and someday I hope to. But in the meantime, all I can do is just imagine. So let's do some imagining today. We're going to talk about cities around the world. So the first thing you have to be able to do, of course, is just describe your city. We're living in Daejeon. Some of you are from Busan or Gwangju or Daegu or Seoul or any number of other places. So you have to be able to look at the place where you live and be able to describe what it's like. Daejeon is a fun one to talk about for me because students usually have a lot of trouble trying to say something attractive about not that Daejeon's not a good place to live, but I mean to say, well, what do you do in Daejeon? Everybody goes to Seoul to do stuff, or Busan. If you want to have a good time and have some fun, Daejeon's really a nice place to live and a good place to work. And there's a lot of nice people here. And it's not a huge city, but it's not a small city. So it's got a good transportation network. I love living here. I like it. But a lot of Koreans think that, Daejeon is just a bit boring. Part of the reason is because we don't have an amusement park. We have a zoo, which has a small roller coaster on it, but we don't have a real big, cool amusement park. We don't have a water park. We don't have really big, shopping complexes or shopping malls. Um, if I compare Daejeon to a place like Vancouver or Toronto, where I'm from back home, or Busan and Seoul in Korea, there's just not that much entertainment here. It's not a good place to really come and spend a week and just do fun stuff. There's not a whole. It's a relatively new city, so there's not a lot of historical stuff to see. Um, it doesn't have a lot of museums. It doesn't have spectacular natural views or like a Niagara Falls type place to visit, or Rocky Mountains, or other the things that you can see in Korea. Like Jeju has all of those things. If you people love going to Jeju because there's the ocean, you can surf, there's beaches, there's a volcano, you can hike, there's the lava tubes, right? You can rent a bicycle and ride around the island. It's pretty. It's an island. There's that gigantic volcanic crater. Udo is in the north. It's a small island. You can, hop on a ferry and go there. There's all kinds of stuff you can do there. There's different types of food. Bus tours, museums, aquariums. I like Jeju. It's a good place. It's a good option for Koreans to go on vacation. So I'm just rattling off a bunch of things. We could talk about Daejeon if we wanted. Like, there are things that you could talk about if you wanted to. There's Yuseong-gu. There's 5 gus. There's 5 districts in Daejeon. If you want to talk about the characteristics, you can. But if you want to pick a city that's really going to be attractive and famous, like what the book calls a world-class city, Daejeon doesn't really satisfy it doesn't tick all the boxes. It doesn't satisfy all the criteria, because the entertainment, the heritage stuff, and the natural environment and the entertainment is not there in Daejeon. So I've been to I think a dozen different countries, 12 countries or so, and the big cities that are my favorite, I've always loved Vancouver in Canada, and that's probably my favorite city in Canada that I've visited. I'm from nearby Toronto, so Toronto's a great place, but it's kind of like my backyard. And I lived in Montreal for a few years, near Montreal. Montreal's a fantastic city too. Those 3 cities, Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver, are in the top 100 most livable cities in the world. So there's a reason why I'm mentioning them. Some other cities where I've lived in Canada are not, and just like Daejeon. No offense, Daejeon, I love you, but you're not on the top of the list. Anyway, Vancouver, it belongs there. I think my top 3 that I've ever visited is probably going to be Tokyo, London, Vancouver. Those would be my choices. If somebody asked me to talk about cities that I've been to, and I could describe them well, and there was lots of different things and experiences I had, and I just had a blast the whole time I was there. I've spent a week in Tokyo twice. I've been to Vancouver 4 times and spent a week or more each time. And I've only been to London once. But all 3 of those cities, they're very different from each other, but they all have a lot to offer you as a visitor. Now, the criteria that I'm going to refer to today is about livable city, and there's a big difference there. Tokyo's not very high on the list. Neither is London. Vancouver last year was number 3 in the world. So, for various reasons, Vancouver beats out those other 2 cities. But if you're going to go for a week, lots of people are going to choose Paris, London, Tokyo, Seoul over Vancouver, because Vancouver, it really isn't a big city. It's just a nice city to live in. The thing that I hear people say about Vancouver, that most people I know, everybody who lives there loves it, except the weather's really kind of depressing. It's very gray and raining. It's very cloudy. You got the mountains on the one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other, and forest and natural beauty everywhere. You got a whole bunch of beaches, and the English Bay is right there, and old buildings and new buildings, and multiculturalism, and pretty safe city. quite politically and economically stable. So like I said before, it kind of ticks all the boxes, and so it gets a higher rating than other places. But if you're just going to go somewhere to have fun for a week, I mean, Tokyo is great. Seoul is great for having fun, and so is London. I would argue better than Vancouver, my experience. But if you're going to make that judgment and you're going to talk to somebody about that, this is not an argument or a presentation. You just have to give me your opinion, like I said. Every time you just need to make a decision, you need to give me your opinion, and you have to support it with ideas and facts. And then I will evaluate you on the quality of the English that you use. So first part, describe the cities as I've been doing. And then the second part is compare. That's how they handle the chapter. Your task this week, your assignment, is to choose a Korean city, any Korean city, and any city that's outside Korea, any foreign city. Doesn't matter. So you got a Korean city and a foreign city. Now, there might be a few, I haven't actually carefully looked at all the names. There are some students that are from other countries, and if you're not familiar with a Korean city, then that kind of defeats the purpose of my exercise. So if you're more comfortable, if you're from Uzbekistan, or you're from China, or you're from Vietnam, or you're from Thailand, or you're from Germany, I'm missing a lot of countries. There's students from all over the place. If you're from any other country, feel free to talk about a city that you know well from your own country, and talk about it and compare it to another city. So you can do, for example, if you're from France, you can choose a city in France and compare it to Korea, right? So then you'd have a domestic city in your case and a foreign city. That's fine too, okay? So Koreans use a Korean city, and if you're from another country and you haven't been in Korea very long, pick a Korean city like Daejeon or Seoul or Incheon or whatever, and talk about it, and then compare it to a city in your home country. That's fine, okay? So it's flexible that way. Just make sure that it's one city that you're very familiar with and another city that you're not, and that's all I want you to do. So how can you break this down? It's sort of the same type of approach that I gave you on week 2 when I asked you to talk about jobs. Everybody handed in their assignments. They made top 10 lists and stuff, and you arranged the criteria in order of priority. And the reason I taught you that is because that's going to be useful for you to analyze anything. When you want to make a decision about what job you have, that's going to help you make a decision, a more intelligent decision. It's going to help you eliminate jobs that maybe don't fit you. I'm not saying that's a perfect way of choosing a job. Some people just, like me, they kind of just go with the path of least resistance. So my education kind of, one thing led to another, and then I started going down this, path towards being a professor, which was not really something that I planned or analyzed. It's just the chain reaction of the decisions that I made job by job led me to this situation now. That's probably not the best way to do it, but I think the advantage of choosing things just on your gut feeling or by what opportunities present themselves mean that you're doing maybe what you're good at, because people are sort of situations are presenting themselves because you're putting yourself in the right situation to take advantage. This is not as serious as buying a house or finding a job, but when you make a decision about what city you're going to go to, you can go through the same process, right? You have to choose which country you're going to go to and which city you're going to visit, or which cities you're going to visit. It was quite difficult. People often ask me, why did you come to Korea in the first place? Like, what was the reason that you chose Korea? And because I say, first of all, I was going to go somewhere in Asia. I wanted to come to Asia because I wanted to travel and I wanted to live in another country. So I thought that was exciting. Then I had to choose whether I was going to go to Japan or China or Singapore or Korea. those were my four, the four countries that I looked at seriously. Hong Kong at the time um, was also a possibility. It's part of China, but it's a little bit different. But anyway, those were the four or five, if you include Hong Kong, those five places I was going to choose, and I had to compare them. And I think I probably made the right choice. I didn't have a lot of information. I didn't think about it very long, but I certainly looked at all the different aspects of the different countries and directly compared them and decided which things were important to me, and Korea was my first choice. And when I got offered a job here, I came, and now it's been 13 years. So I guess I made the right decision. I can't say for sure because I never lived in Japan or China, but looks like since I never left that this is where I belong, right? So when it comes to the cities, whether you're going to, you have to decide what you're doing. Are you going to go on vacation there? Are we talking about visiting, or are we talking about living? So you have a choice. You can compare two cities for, in terms of how good they are to live, or you can talk about where you would like to visit. Because like I said, that's different. I have no desire to live in Tokyo. There's reasons for that, but I won't get into them. Well, one of the reasons is it's everybody speaks Japanese and it's different culture, and I'm more comfortable in Korea than in Japan because I don't have any basis for language in Japan. But Vancouver has other aspects of it. I mean, Tokyo is just too big for me. I don't want to live in a place that has 30 million people in it during the daytime, right? That's like all of Canada almost. Our whole population doesn't belong in one city, but in Japan, that's how it is. I can't handle that kind of density. Daejeon's much preferable, and Vancouver's just a little bit. It's a little bit bigger than Daejeon, but not much. So that's probably the most important criteria right there. I don't want to live in a mega city. I don't want to live in Seoul either. I had my chance 10 years ago to move to Seoul, and I turned it down. So yeah, living, Daejeon. Visiting, Seoul, Tokyo. Okay, so make a choice whether you're going to be visiting these places or if you're going to be living there. Then I'm going to talk about, I've been talking about vacation a little bit already, so let's just focus on the livable aspect. I pulled up on my computer over here, there's an organization called Mercer that every year they have this ranking that they publish, which they take 200 and something cities around the world and then they rank them. And they use a certain set of criteria, and I think the way it works, as I understand it, is New York City is the base for comparison. So they take all different aspects, and if I'm gonna get these factors right here, safety, education, hygiene, healthcare, culture, environment, recreation, political stability, economic stability, transportation, access to goods and services. There's actually 39 criteria that they judge, and they give points according to, or fractions of points for each category, right? So New York City you might say it's the benchmark city. So New York gets a score of 100, and every other city is scored relative to New York. So New York sits at 40 something. New York City is number 44 last year, and it sits between 45 and 50 normally. So there's over 40 cities that are better than New York, but New York is the standard for comparison. So I'm not bragging about Canada because there are other countries that have even more top 100 cities than Canada does. There's a lot of cities from Australia and Germany and Austria. Vienna is actually number one. The capital of Austria is number one. So those are the most livable cities because They're safe, right? Um, the quality of education is high. Hygiene means the cities are clean. Healthcare means hospitals and doctors and nurses and healthcare workers and that kind of thing. Um, Culture, culture includes the things that I was mentioning. Those things are more important for visiting. Like if you go to a place that's really livable, it could be super livable but not very interesting. Like Daejeon. Sorry, Daejeon, but it's true. So that the heritage stuff, the historical stuff, the amusement stuff, the shows, the concerts, um, shopping, all of those things, that shows, all those things that and art, museums, all those things that I mentioned. Those are really important for visiting, but they only represent a small portion of the score. Vienna obviously has a high score, probably close to a perfect score in terms of culture, because that city it's an old city with all kinds of culture. It's just dripping with culture there. I would love to go and see it, and a lot of Koreans do visit Vienna. You don't hear Americans and Canadians being like, "Oh, I really want to see Vienna." We're always wanting to see Paris, London, Tokyo, New York kind of thing, and excluding all these other amazing places. But Prague and Vienna are two of the places that have some incredibly rich cultural heritages that they're, as if you like that sort of thing, they might be more attractive to you than a place like Paris or London. Rome is like that too. Rome is just, if you love ancient civilization, Rome is, you want to go to Athens, you want to go to Rome. If you like a brand new city that's super clean and high paced, and it's got all kinds of different neighborhoods that you can go to and have fun in, then you go to Tokyo, and yeah, or Seoul. Seoul's like that too. Okay, they have a lot of variety in their neighborhoods. All right, so that's culture. That's probably the most dynamic category, which means it's got a lot of different aspects to it. And environment, obviously that includes pollution and other things like that affect you. Recreation, more fun, exercising, being outdoors, anything to do that you would enjoy. That means, sports and concerts and stuff like that. Like I said, entertainment, things that you can do for fun. Political stability is a big one. Obviously, that sort of means that the leadership and the administration of the city are doing a good job managing the city. Economic stability means that everybody has enough money, so you're going to see, evidence of people having enough to eat and nice cars and clothing and less poor people around and that kind of thing, as a byproduct of good economic situations. Transportation. Korea is much better than Canada in that department. When I finally move back to Canada someday, I know one of the things I'm going to really miss about Korea is transportation. I hope that in the meantime, Canada starts building its transportation infrastructure. I'm really going to miss the KTX and the bus lines and the subway, because they're just so much faster, more efficient, more comfortable here, and cheaper too. All right, access to goods and services. Yeah, so Korea's improving on those fronts all the time. If you want to get anything, from all over the world, you go to one of those mega cities. You can get anything in Seoul. You can get anything in Tokyo or Vancouver. Daejeon, you can get most things, but some things still, you got to go to the big city to get them. And that's something that lowers the score if you can't do that. Okay? So, first of all, get ready to describe these cities. Second of all, decide what you're going to do. Visit or live. And then choose two cities. One of them has to be domestic, from your own country. The other one has to be from abroad, a foreign city. Okay? I think I said country there. I meant city. Domestic city, compare it to a city from another country. Okay? So that's your assignment for next week. Let's see. Next week will be April 7th, if I'm not mistaken. So assignments are due every Tuesday, as I told you. There's going to be a little file that I upload just to reinforce the points I've been making about format and about the YouTube channel. I made a mistake uploading several times already, so be patient about that. Also, I'm trying to figure out how to do live broadcasting through YouTube, but if that doesn't work out, I'm going to use other software. The government, as far as I know, didn't tell us about an extension yet, so we could still be going back to school next Monday. I would like that, but I don't think it's a good idea, and I don't think they're going to make that decision. So let's just plan for doing this longer. And at some point, I'll be trying to do a live broadcast. That is why I've been telling my other classes that it might be better for you just to subscribe to the channel too, so that I know who you are and I can close the channel. When I do a live broadcast, I can invite the students from that class only. If I'm going to do it through YouTube, that's the better way to do it. It's kind of complicated, and I am good with computers, but this is my first time. When I make mistakes with the recording, you usually don't see them because I delete them. But I want to make sure that the live broadcast works properly. So if you could make a Google ID, you don't have to expose yourself in any way. You don't even have to use your real name if you don't want to. That's fine. It's lots of people have done it already. But I'd probably be asking everybody to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that we can do this kind of private live broadcast where you can chat and I can talk. I've been using YouTube only so far, and it's been working quite well. So I'm just going to try and continue to do that for now. And if that is the way we can do it, that's great. And if it doesn't work out, then I'm going to try something else like Microsoft Teams or Zoom or the in-house software that Chugnam uses, but I really don't want to do that. It's kind of scary. And technical support is all in Korean, so it's tough for me to do that. So make sure you look at the lecture summary, this one. Be patient for the uploads, please. Usually they should be up by the time your regular class was scheduled during the week. So if your class is at Tuesday at 10, you should expect the video to be up at Tuesday by 10 a.m. or Tuesday at 12 p.m. if that's what your class is. But I'm doing your 2 Conversation 1 classes. I'm doing 1 video lecture. You're the only 2 classes, thank God, that I can combine. My other classes are all unique. So yeah, I like doing this most because I get to do 2 classes at once. So there's a group of 40 of you. But when we do the live broadcast, I will probably separate you and do you separately and set that up with the morning class and the afternoon class having their own chat session with me. Okay, so these are just ideas that we're bouncing around between professors and in the administration, but I think it would be probably good to have a little bit of conversation back and forth. You probably won't be able to talk to me directly, but there's a good chance that we will be able to do our midterm exam over Skype or over YouTube or something, where we do it I just call you and I tell you what your time is. I'm going to call you. I've actually done this before. I did 47 interviews in one day for the Korean, it's KERI, Korea Atomic Energy Research Institute. I actually have done this before, where we just connected to each student one by one. And they made sure they used their phone or their webcam or their laptop or whatever, and we did the interview and everything. Actually, we had very few problems, so we can do that too. So good news, your midterm's not canceled. Don't worry, we'll figure it out. Okay, that's all I have for today. I hope you are enjoying the video lectures and that the topics are interesting. Please use the textbook. It is a really good textbook, and do some of the listening exercises, and don't just write your homework at the last minute and then email it and forget about it. read it over and make sure you know your topics, because if you don't practice the night before the exam, you won't be able to practice enough to be comfortable in the interview. It's much better for you to practice the topics, over the whole 2 months or 6 weeks that we have until we get to the midterm exam. So don't just crumple it up in a ball and throw it in the corner, or just send the email and forget about it until the night before the midterm. That's a bad choice. I know you're freshmen, so that's probably what you're going to do, but I'm warning you, you should be practicing week by week, and then you hardly have to study at all, because all you have to do is just refresh yourself. Oh yeah, I've been looking at this, I remember this topic, I know what I'm going to say, and get a good night's sleep, because it's much better to be in an interview well rested. Trust me, I know. I've been to interviews where I haven't slept because I was nervous before. It doesn't help. All right. Have a good day, and I will talk to you again in a week. And the updates will keep coming. There'll be a small file that gives you instructions and a general update on how the classes are going. So that will be available later in the week. Okay?